6 in the morning. It's 14 away from the top of the hour. It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160, 101.1 FM. We're keeping our Facebook people busy today. I'll move this out of the way so you can get good shots of all of you in the studio with us this morning. So I said to Josh Krug from the Indiana County Office of Planning and Development, we want to talk about census because it's coming and it's really important, and evidently Josh took me to heart. Josh Krug is here, and you brought with you a whole bunch of people to talk about census.
Yes, Todd, thanks for having us. I got Joe here today, and Stephanie, and Rick.
Mm-hmm. Rick is Rick Buck. He's from the United States Census Bureau. Joe is Joe Lehman. He's a student planner with the planning office, right?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. And Stephanie Walters is with Indiana Borough.
I am.
Good to have you all with us here today. Where do we want to start, Josh? The census is coming up next year, and we're going to have to get ready now.
Yeah, we're gearing up for Census 2020, which will be April 1st, 2020 is Census Day.
Okay.
And we will be working through the census then through July of next year. So we're probably from now through July of next year, we're in census mode.
Yeah.
And this is once every 10 years. I won't get into too much of the technical details. I'll leave some of that to Rick. But from the county perspective, we're putting together a complete count committee. And I'll leave some of those details to Joe. I'll let Phil in here in a minute as well. But we're working on a complete count committee, and Stephanie from the borough here is heading up efforts here in the borough and with White Township and IUP, kind of a focus there as a subcommittee. And we're pulling everything together right now and getting geared up.
All right, so you're getting the team put together here. You held the draft, and Joe Lehman, you were one of the draft choices. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Wonderful. It's good to have you with us here today. So tell me your role in on the team and as the census approaches. What are you going to be doing?
So my role right now is to gather some of the local community leaders and business owners and school administrators and put them in a group called the Complete Count Committee. And this group brainstorms and implements grassroots outreach throughout the county to raise awareness of the census toward Census Day, April 1st.
Help to form the strategy to make sure every head gets counted, huh?
Yeah, that's our goal, is a complete count.
Terrific. It's going well?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We're sending out the appointment letters now, and end of August 22nd, we're hopefully going to have our first meeting.
Stephanie Walters, Indiana Borough. So you're chairing. Which committee are you chairing?
It's a subcommittee of Indiana Borough, White Township, and IUP.
And what's its role with the census?
So our focus is going to be just on the Indiana Borough, White Township area, including IUP students. Rick has provided us information that on average about 30% of the people living in our borough won't be counted in the census. So we're just trying to increase the awareness and try to get that number a little bit lower so that we can have a complete count of everyone that is living here.
Cut that number down a little bit. I would imagine that's particularly challenging when you incorporate the IUP student body.
Right, and the census tract that does encompass IUP has our highest low response score with 40%. So 4 out of every 10 students will not respond if we don't do any sort of outreach to them. So it's going to be really important for us to do some targeted outreach to that demographic.
Yeah, well, there are probably some really specific reasons for that and some ramifications of it as well. That I'm sure we're going to have you back, and you're going to tell us all about those.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like a really interesting topic that is going to be a standalone, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to be working with all the partners. You know we have IUP at the table. Stephanie actually pulled a group together last month, and we started having meetings and discussions as to pulling a complete count plan together for the complete count committee. And I know she's working with IUP and that they've got a game plan. And I think Rick even has some kind of special tactics to use for the university.
Well, let's talk to Rick Buck. He is with the Census Bureau, the Philadelphia Regional Census Center. And he joins us here this morning as well, along with our other census professionals. They're now census professionals, aren't they, Rick?
Well, they are. And we have the opportunity to work to promote the census every 10 years, and here we are.
So Stephanie had some interesting comments there about, and the number she cited was rather shocking, 30% within Indiana Borough, White Township, the IUP community, won't be counted. What are the reasons people are not counted in a census?
Well, really, in most cases, I think what most people don't do is they don't really understand the importance of the census and its ramifications. Because when people don't get counted, the biggest impact for areas like the township of the borough and the county altogether is in fact money. You see, because every year the federal government distributes shares of over $675 billion to states, to counties, to municipalities, to school districts, and to social service programs. And the way those shares are distributed, very simply, is by the number of people who get counted in the census in each of them. Which means when people don't get counted, those entities don't get their share of that money, and they don't get it for 10 years because the next do-over isn't until 2030.
Yeah. I would guess that there's a bunch of confusion among people about their participation in the census, multiplied by the fact that you're a student at IUP from Lancaster County, Lehigh County. You're here at IUP when the census time comes around. Do I do my census count here, or do I count back home? That has to be a big issue.
Well, it is, and what the students get counted in a census operation that's called group quarters. And they're counted a little differently because they're not going to get a questionnaire in the mail like we are at our houses or apartments. They get counted by census operations people visiting the dorms and encouraging the students to come to get counted that way. Many times, again, people have asked me as a partnership specialist, well, why would the students get counted here? Well, very simply. Monies that the borough, the township, the county gets for water and sewer improvement and construction, for fire and police protection, for road construction. Okay, those are all monies based on census figures. If the students at IUP don't get counted here, White Township, Indiana Borough, Indiana County doesn't get their share of that money.
Yeah.
But they're serving them and obligated to serve them. So it behooves the county, this group of people who is here today, to work very hard to share the imminence and the importance of the census with the people in anticipation that we'll work to get them to respond to the census and get counted next year in April.
Away from the student body and the general population, what are some of the impediments that you find with the Census Bureau to people saying, or people responding in the proper way to a census? To the census?
Really, typically, most people, just as I said before, most people don't, if they're not going to respond, it's because they just don't understand how important it is. And that our goal, what I can tell you the goal of this committee is to make sure that next year in March, when the households get the opportunity to respond, the goal is to make sure that there's not a house in the county that doesn't know what that is and will make sure that they take the time to respond.
Yeah.
And that's the goal of the committee here.
Josh Krug, weigh in.
Well, we're really excited this year to that point that there's going to be more methods to respond than ever in the past. So there'll be an online method, there'll be a phone-in method, and then there'll be your traditional mail-in method as well. And that's just your initial response. Of course, then the census folks go out and try to, fill the gaps, and get the people who haven't necessarily responded. But the Complete Count Committee, if we can be successful in getting as many people as possible to respond on the front end and know the importance of it, then we can reduce the amount of work that the census has to do here, and again, increase our overall number then, because the most we can get, they're going to focus their efforts through July here. So if they're focused on a lesser amount of people, then they hopefully can get all of those people. Where if there's more that they have to get, they might not be able to get them all. And to the point of funding, an interesting figure that was tossed around is that $2,000 per person per year. So a family of 5 that doesn't get counted is $100,000 in funding over a 10-year period. That's not going to come back to this area.
Yeah.
So it's ever important and crucial. And last thing I'd like to weigh in on is that at IUP, they get if you live here on April 1st, then you should be counted here.
Okay.
And that's the technical clarity there that we were looking for. I think a lot of people were ambiguous here in Indiana as to what is our population? Are the students included? Are they not?
Sure.
Well, it's who gets counted in the census, and that's why we want to get that accurate.
lot of misconceptions about the census, a lot of confusion, and frankly, some people who have their own conspiracy theories about the census. I would guess that over the next 6 months, the big challenge, or 8 months, the big challenge is to help people understand what it's all about.
Yeah, and I'll actually have Joe talk about that here. Joe, talk about the confidentiality.
Yeah, so the confidentiality is kind of a misconception that I hear a lot about the census. And the data that is collected, especially the personal data, that is protected by law. Each census worker takes an oath to never share that with anyone, and the data is never shared with another governmental agency, like it's never shared with the FBI or anything. And that data is actually protected for 72 years.
Yeah.
And then it is made public, but not before then.
Yeah, I feel like we're really going to have everybody come back several times in the next months in order to get clarity on all of these different issues that people are going to have, because questions are going to come up.
Yeah, and you know, there's definitely going to be jobs related to the census as well. That's another topic. You know, if you look up the census, 2020census.gov, you know, you can find the jobs on there. That there's going to be, you know, decent paying jobs for people to work and contribute to getting that complete count. You know, here in Indiana County. But to your point, Todd, there's going to be a lot of questions. We're here to answer them, and we're happy that we have Rick with us as kind of our consultant to help guide us along the way.
Rick Buck, how long are you with this particular area? What's your region? You know, how wide is the scope here for you?
For me personally, I serve 6 counties. So I serve Indiana, Cambria, Blair, Somerset, Bedford, and Fulton counties.
That's enough.
Yeah, I think it is. Not for me.
That's enough, people. Well, that's a good thing that we're going to be able to draw upon your expertise to help answer all of these questions. As I said, this is going to be a topic that is much visited over the course of the next year. And I thank you, Josh, for helping us to get some clarity today, and we'll continue to develop it, okay?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate having the core team with me as well, you know,
Yeah.
and having Stephanie and Rick and Joe here with me. It's a good group to have.
Yeah, probably at some point we'll have to schedule something that is much more comprehensive than just our normal segment, too.
Thank you.
It is Indiana in the Morning. It's WCCS.